one of 5 permanent British Antarctic Survey research stations in the British Antarctic Territory, sits on the Brunt Ice Shelf. That is the physical contradiction. A long-term scientific outpost has been placed on ice, while the episode title says the base can move every few years. But the supplied record confirms only the station's location. It does not provide dimensions, relocation dates, structural details, or a documented moving procedure. So the first answer is not the dramatic mechanism the title appears to promise. It is a boundary around what can honestly be established. Halley Research Station exists on the Brunt Ice Shelf, and the British Antarctic Survey operates it. The specific claim that this station escapes moving ice by periodically relocating remains unverified by the evidence available here. Understanding why that distinction matters begins with the organization behind the base, and with the much larger system that the single Antarctic station belongs to. The British Antarctic Survey is the United Kingdom's National Polar Research Institute. Its stated purposes combine polar science with maintaining an active British presence in Antarctica. The organization has more than 400 staff and operates 5 research stations, 1 ship, and 5 aircraft across the polar regions. It also works with more than 40 universities in the United Kingdom and participates in over 120 national and international collaborations. Those figures change the scale of the story. Halley is not an isolated shelter assembled for one expedition. It is part of a network supported by laboratories, workshops, ships, aircraft, logistics facilities, and institutional planning. The permanent stations listed in the British Antarctic Territory are Rothera, Halley, Sini, Fossil Bluff, and Sky Blue. Within that network, Halley's defining documented feature is its setting, the Brunt Ice Shelf. Yet location alone does not reveal how the structure responds to that environment. An ice shelf presents an obvious conceptual problem for any station intended to endure. A building normally depends on a stable relationship with the ground beneath it. Here, even the word ground becomes misleading, because the supplied source identifies the site as an ice shelf rather than rock or conventional soil. But that observation cannot be stretched into unsupported engineering detail. The record does not quantify ice movement, describe snow accumulation, identify a fracture threat, or state how often relocation occurs. It also does not describe foundations, skis, hydraulic systems, tow points, modular connections, or any other mechanism commonly associated with movable structures. Those may be relevant questions, but they are not answers contained in this evidence. The hidden system, therefore, is partly an information problem. We know where the station operates and who operates it. We do not know, from this source alone, what carries its loads or how the building could be repositioned. The tempting first attempt is to reason backward from the title. If a base moves, perhaps it must slide. If it stands on ice, perhaps it rides above the surface. If it relocates repeatedly, perhaps it separates into transportable sections. Each inference sounds plausible. None is documented here. Plausibility is not verification, especially in extreme engineering, where one missing detail can reverse the entire explanation. A structure might be lifted, dragged, dismantled, abandoned, rebuilt, or supported by a combination of systems. Without evidence, choosing one would manufacture the central fact of the episode. The same caution applies to the phrase "every few years." The supplied record gives no relocation interval and no sequence of moves. It does not identify an original site, a destination, a distance, or the equipment involved. The first explanatory approach therefore fails. The mechanism cannot be reconstructed reliably from the title and the station's location. The turning point comes from a different documented change. Before 2017, Halley was open throughout the year. In the supplied account, Rothera is now the only British Antarctic Survey station staffed year-round. That establishes a shift in Halley's operating pattern, but it does not establish why the shift occurred. It would be easy to connect the change to ice movement, structural danger, or relocation work. The evidence does not make any of those connections. What it does show is that the status of an extreme environment station cannot be understood from architecture alone. Occupancy is an operational decision within a broader polar program. Ships, aircraft, seasonal access, staffing, scientific priorities, and safety constraints may all matter in principle, but the supplied source does not assign Halley's post-2017 status to any one of them. The verified turning point is narrower. Halley ceased being one of the survey's year-round staffed stations. To explain a relocation mechanism properly, several pieces of engineering evidence would be essential. First would be the load path, how the station's weight passes through its structure and into the ice. Second would be the interface with the surface, whether the support system is fixed, adjustable, removable, or designed to slide. Third would be the movement sequence. What is disconnected, what remains operational, what provides pulling force, and how stability is maintained during travel. A complete explanation would also need verified distances, dates, environmental limits, and the reason each move became necessary. None of those details appears in the supplied record. That absence prevents a visual, concrete account of the mechanism without invention. The most accurate diagram possible from this evidence would contain only 3 confirmed elements: the British Antarctic Survey as operator, Halley Research Station as the facility, and the Brunt Ice Shelf as its location. Everything below that level remains unresolved. This evidentiary gap has a real consequence for the story. A dramatic engineering claim can easily become more memorable than the documentation supporting it. Once an animation shows legs rising, modules sliding, or tractors pulling a station, viewers naturally read those images as facts. Calling the sequence an illustration would not solve the deeper problem if the underlying mechanism had never been established. The reconstruction would still encode unsupported assumptions about machinery, structure, and procedure. The cost is not merely a missing technical detail, it changes the meaning of the project. A towable building, a dismantled building, and a building reconstructed at a new site represent 3 different engineering strategies. They distribute cost, risk, downtime, and structural complexity in different ways. Because the source does not identify which strategy applies, it cannot support claims about the decision that supposedly made Halley's movement possible, or about what nearly defeated the station. There is a reasonable counterpoint. The title's claim may be correct, and fuller institutional records may document a mobile design and repeated relocations. Nothing in the supplied source disproves that possibility. The station's position on an ice shelf makes questions about movement and long-term siting entirely understandable. But possibility must remain separate from established fact. The record supplied for this episode is a general account of the British Antarctic Survey, not a technical history of Halley's architecture. Its silence on the mechanism is not proof that no mechanism exists. It is proof only that this source cannot verify one. That distinction protects both sides of the uncertainty. It avoids falsely declaring the title wrong, while also avoiding a fabricated explanation designed to make the title sound complete. The documented story and the proposed engineering story overlap at Halley's name and location, but they do not yet join at the crucial causal link. What can be said about the outcome is limited but clear. Halley remains listed among the 5 permanent British Antarctic Survey research stations in the British Antarctic Territory. It is identified specifically with the Brunt Ice Shelf. The supplied account also says that only Rothera is staffed throughout the year, whereas Halley had been open year-round before 2017. These facts establish continued institutional recognition of Halley alongside a changed occupancy pattern. They do not reveal whether the station currently occupies an original position, a relocated position, or a succession of sites. They do not establish a relocation schedule or confirm that movement occurs every few years. Even the word permanent needs careful reading here. In the source, it classifies the research station within the survey's network. It does not necessarily mean that every component, location, or staffing arrangement remains unchanged. Beyond that distinction, the present physical status is unvalidated. The evidence-based conclusion is therefore precise. Britain's National Polar Research Institute operates Halley Research Station on the Brunt Ice Shelf as part of a much larger scientific and logistical network. Halley was staffed throughout the year before 2017, but the supplied account identifies Rothera as the survey's only station now staffed year-round. The claim that Halley escapes moving ice by relocating every few years may have a documented explanation elsewhere, but that explanation is absent from the evidence provided for this episode. The engineering lesson is not a guessed mechanism. It is the importance of the missing interface between structure and site. To prove that this Antarctic base can move, the record must show how loads reach the ice, how supports transition from standing to transport, what force moves the structure, and when verified relocations occurred. Until those links are documented, the station's location is fact, its operational change is fact, and its celebrated escape mechanism remains an unresolved claim. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.